Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Yeadon. I'm the co-founder and CEO with Impetus Digital. At Impetus Digital, we have built some of the best-in-class asynchronous and synchronous virtual collaboration and communication tools. We have worked with life science companies from across the globe over the past 13 years to help them with everything from virtual advisory boards to digital medical education to online investigator meetings. And since the launch of our award-winning Insight Events platform, we've also been helping pharma companies with large corporate events, innovation hackathons, MSL and sales training, and everything in between. But more importantly, at Impetus, we really believe that everything starts with a conversation. And from these big, hairy, audacious conversations with some of the leading edge thinkers, digital provocateurs, and some of the healthcare thought leaders, we can all work together to collectively and positively disrupt healthcare. So I'm really excited about having one of these thought leaders at the table with me today. This is actually Dr. Dhiren Thakker. He's actually the founding president and CEO of Med Aditus International. It's a nonprofit corporation that he launched in December of 2019. And he did this to actually improve the availability of affordable and quality medicines to some of these underserved populations in sub-Saharan Africa. He is actually the professor emeritus at the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy. This is the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he served as a distinguished professor and administrator for nearly 24 years. Prior to joining UNC in 1996, Dr. Thacker spent 8 years at Glaxo Incorporated, where he was director of the drug metabolism department, 4 years at the Center for Biologics and the FDA, and 8 years at the National Institute of Health. He obtained a Bachelor of Pharmacy from Bombay University, India, as well as an MS in Pharmaceutical Chemistry from Columbia University in New York, as well as a PhD in Biochemistry from the University of Kansas at Lawrence. Welcome, Dr. Thacker. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And I have to say, a very fine and distinguished career, and something to be very proud of. I'm sure that they were very upset to lose you over at the university, but obviously decided to go in and do something of high importance, I think, to you personally. So I was wondering if maybe you can start to tell us a little bit about why you decided to leave a very high profile position and go and start a nonprofit called Med Aditus.
Yes, you are right. I had spent wonderful 24 years at Eshelman School of Pharmacy at UNC, and I think it was a dream job. But maybe over the last 5 to 6 years, as I was involved in bringing our school, on the international stage, I had actually launched an office called Global Engagement. And the idea was to really connect our faculty and students with the rest of the world. And in doing so, we had developed several partnerships, and we began to really work with other universities and other partners to address some of the major healthcare issues in the world. And as I was involved in this, it became very clear to me that healthcare across the world is not uniformly, available. In fact, my own area is medicine, and I clearly saw that access to medicine is incredibly difficult in many parts of the world. And I began to feel like it's time for me to really, meet this problem head on and do something for this problem. And I knew that I couldn't really do this as a side job, while holding my position at UNC. So at some point, I feel like as much as I liked my job and my career, it was time for me to really move to this very important issue that certainly I want to spend the rest of my life addressing.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. And a wonderful dream to have. And so good for you as well.
Thank you.
So what's interesting here, Dr. Thacker, is that you started this prior to the pandemic. So
Yeah.
obviously very visionary, and there was obviously a problem prior to the pandemic.
Right.
So can you actually spell to us what the problem statement or statements were about getting medications and really important things in the underserved populations in the sub-Saharan area prior to COVID, and what is happening now post-COVID?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting time to start Med Aditus. Actually, I launched Med Aditus in December of 2019. And as you know, January, February of 2020, we were struck by this crazy, incredible pandemic. In many ways, it made my life a bit difficult, but in some very interesting ways, actually, pandemic really made my case. I had always worried about the fact that although countries in sub-Saharan Africa are able to get their medicine by importing from Asia, mostly from Asia, that is not sustainable. I have felt this for many years. Because you are dependent on other countries, we are dependent on a supply chain that may or may not really always be, robust, and very importantly, in that transfer from Asia to Africa, there are so many different places where the medicines could be substituted with substandard and counterfeit medicines. So for all these reasons, I was pushing that the long-term solution for sub-Saharan Africa to create access to medicine is local manufacturing. And in many ways, the pandemic made my case a lot more effectively than I could. As you know, instantaneously, the supplies of very critical medicine were interrupted, not only to Africa, but even to the US. Because as you know, a lot of the US, drugs are being manufactured in Asia, China, India, and brought here. So seeing that this kind of a event, man-made or natural event, could in a matter of minutes to an hours can really stop supply of something that is so vital. I think everybody now gets it. So the governments and private sector individuals in Africa are very, very keen to really pursue this whole idea of creating local capacity.
Beautiful. One does ask the question. I mean, you obviously have big pharma, and it has always raised the ethical question of why pharma was not enabling or providing products, medications, and important drugs to populations that didn't have the funding. And so sometimes these issues were skirted around and what have you. How are you trying to solve the business model issue around pricing, reimbursement, and keeping prices sort of competitive outside of the African area? So how are you trying to help solve that issue?
Yeah, I think clearly, I think we all know this. Pharmas, multinationals can definitely provide a lot of the medicines in countries in sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere, but it doesn't happen. And pricing pressures and disparity in pricing, between resource-constrained countries and resource-rich countries makes it very hard for them to really sustain this. So I think we know this, but it's not like they don't want to help. So as we go into Africa, I think we want to really find ways to, on one hand, keep the quality high, the same kind of quality that multinationals really provide, but keep the cost down. And I think the way we want to do this is by bringing some very new technology, both in pharmaceutical manufacturing as well as in managing quality across the entire sort of life cycle of a drug. We believe that these technologies, and we can talk more about this during the session, will actually help us keep the cost down, keep the quality high, and help us really achieve that very important objective, and that is to make high quality drugs available at affordable costs. And we also believe that some of our business models, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we want to really find partners who can extend us, who can complement us, and creating this as a more of a partnership, a collaborative effort rather than trying to do this ourselves. And as you know, we are doing this not for profit motive, although we will be in a private sector. So whatever money we make, we will reinvest.
We, the pandemic has been a very, interesting, and it's basically turned the world upside down in some really negative, horrendous ways, but also it's added some glimmer of hope, and it's potentiated and accelerated change in a lot of really important ways. What's also been really interesting is the amount of tech investment and tech growth that's been happening in African countries. I'm thinking specifically of Lagos, Cape Town, Nairobi, Cairo, Johannesburg. There's a lot of African areas. I'm thinking there's many, many more that they're now these tech hubs, biotech hubs. So as you talk about potential partnerships and all of the investment that is flooding in to the African areas, how is this also helping to accelerate some of the thinking around developing actual manufacturing in Africa? And are you also considering that there's going to be brand new pharmaceutical companies that will grow and mature right in Africa?
I think they will, and you're right. I think there is a tremendous both interest in bringing technology to Africa, and there is actually a lot of activity in tech transfer, digital health. Both the governments in many countries in Africa are very keen to bring these technologies into their country. So on one hand, there is a pull. Africans want this, and I think global health community, pharma community have recognized that really the best approach to create long-term solution is to really transfer technology. There's been a lot of conversation around during the COVID-19 vaccine and other issues where I think there is general acceptance that tech transfer to Africa and other countries where this is needed, and then helping them develop local capacity is probably the only way we can go forward. So the climate is right, and we want to really actually take obviously advantage of this very right climate to bring new technology into Africa, and both in manufacturing, in quality management, in data science, and we want to create a model that I hope will be replicated by others. Because what our goal is not to just go there and start one manufacturing facility. Our goal is to be able to showcase this so that others, as well as we, will be able to scale it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's actually talk about one of these technologies, or the concept around it. And this is what you keep referring to as continuous manufacturing technology. Please tell us a little bit more about what that means and why that's going to be a differentiator for what your company at Med Aditus is going to provide to some of these people who are thinking about integrating this.
Yeah, clearly, I think we are betting on this technology. For the last 40 plus years, pharmaceutical companies have been manufacturing medicines through the traditional approach, what we call batch process, which really means that there are a number of steps in manufacturing a drug, and all these steps really go in sequence. And at the end, which could take, as you know, a batch could be produced of any medicine over a period of a few weeks to even a few months. And then you start over again. That is the traditional model. And I think what has happened in the last 10 to 15 years, and this includes actually multinational pharmaceutical companies, very, very involved in developing this technology. And so instead of that, what we have is a set of machinery, a sort of a production line that is integrated into a system whereby you put the ingredients at one end of this production line, and everything mixing and other things that need to happen. And on the other end, you actually have tablets coming out if you're producing tablets. This happens in a continuous fashion. So from the time you actually load the ingredients to the time the tablet comes out, it's a matter of minutes, not a matter of weeks and months. And secondly, this is a continuous process. So that you can actually make this production line work day in, day out, 24 hours a day, barring any kind of a mechanical interruption. So you can produce very large amount of medicine, and you need relatively few people to really manage this. And so you can actually make with one set production line, which can fit in a 2,000 square foot room, you can make 2 billion tablets a year.
Wow.
So it's and I think there has been a tremendous progress in actually in process monitoring of all of the things that are happening, so that you have the product, uniform product, everything that you need to know about quality of the product actually is ensured through some very sophisticated technology, which monitors the entire process in real time. This is a breathtaking sort of a development, really.
It does make you wonder why everybody in North America is not using these as well. So,
but they are more and more companies, multinationals have started to really, incorporate this technology in their new products.
Beautiful. Now, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa is huge. There's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of territory. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong when you're developing manufacturing and then trying to manage quality and then trying to distribute this and deliver it to people in all kinds of nooks and crannies with all of the challenges that are inherent in that country. You had mentioned earlier about blockchain. Now, a lot of times people, when they think of blockchain, they think about decentralized finance and they're thinking about ledgers, and they really can't get their head around how blockchain could be integrated into drug manufacturing. Can you tell us a little bit about the technology and what this could mean around quality and management distribution of the drugs you're suggesting?
Sure. In fact, besides the continuous manufacturing, blockchain sort of powered data acquisition management system, and through that quality management system is going to be another very important part of our strategy. And we are fortunate to have a partner for this technology, bringing this technology, and that's Remedy. From the very first day that I started conceiving this project, I have worked with and talked to Jason Cross, who is the co-founder of Remedy. And we together have sort of envisioned how we can bring this blockchain into pharmaceutical manufacturing, but also distribution of our products, not only to wholesalers, but all the way to the patient. We believe that using this technology, which has unique sort of ability to have very high data integrity, as well as ability to share that data in real time with regulatory bodies, with other healthcare managers, and so on. Combination of all this will allow us to really create a very secure supply chain. First of all, we'll be able to manufacture our products in a very highest level of quality, the so-called good manufacturing practices, GMP, so that we are assuring quality to not only us and our stakeholders, but even regulators. And then once we go past that, we expect to have our products tracked, traced through this technology, so that we will know that our custody of our product is intact from the time it left our premises till the time it reaches the patient. That cannot be understated, the value of that. So we believe that by doing this, we will be able to create very, very high quality products, not only in our factory, but we'll make sure that becomes available to the patient. This is a
So
very exciting technology as well.
absolutely, and very exciting, and wonderful to see it being integrated as well in ways that are outside of finance. Now, I think the thing that's really important here is that, first of all, I was wondering if you could mention, what kinds of drugs you're thinking about initially, and if this is in a tiered process, what are you starting with, and what are some of the longer term goals in terms of the types of drugs, and why have you selected them? But also curious, because pharma is such a highly regulated industry across the globe. It's very, very hard to, everybody can create medications. It's a whole other thing to have them go through the rigor of looking at clinical trials, assessing their safety, all those sorts of things, and before an actual patient receives the drugs. So with these new drugs that you can name for us, how are you planning on getting this through or developing the regulatory rigor, if you will, in this country?
Yeah, so you're right. We are going to be very strategic in selecting the products as we move forward. In early stages of our operation there, we would be manufacturing a small number of products. And then, of course, we're going to grow in size, both number of products and the scope of the products. So what we have done is we have done extensive analysis of the market, patient needs in African countries in general, but specifically in Kenya, where we plan to actually have our first manufacturing facility, specifically in Kisumu County. And we can talk about that as well. So our research has showed that one of the classes of drugs that are not available to African population is drugs that are made for children. Both the drugs made for children and even the drugs that are made for both children and adults, you need a specific types of formulation that will be friendly to children. And there is practical absence to this. And if you take that along with the information that we have, that nearly 40% of the population of most African countries really is under the age of 18. In some estimates is that even more than 50% of the population is under the age of 18. So you have half the population for which we do not really have right medicines or right formulations. Big unmet need, right? We believe that we can actually focus on that. We want to become a company that specializes in children's medicine. So on one hand, we can meet a very, very acute need that is there in the society, but we are also going to create a very unique market position. So we believe that even economically and financially, this is going to be a very viable approach for us to start with children's medicine. And plus, for me, this is very important to me. Even in my career, I have worked on how do we really improve quality of the dosing for children so that we achieve the best efficacy and minimum side effects. I have graduated 3 PhDs on this subject. So this is very close to my heart, but it is also, I think, financially and economically a very viable approach. So that's one. And then we also want to recognize that non-communicable diseases, diabetes, and heart diseases, and all the diseases of this kind have significantly increased in Africa. These are lifestyle diseases, and Africa, of course, has a population that is really both growing in size and in their financial ability to really have a good lifestyle. And with that comes these diseases. And so we want to make sure that we address the need in non-communicable diseases as well. And then the third very important class is the so-called neglected tropical diseases. African countries have large population that is afflicted by parasitic diseases. And there is really no financial motivation for companies to develop drugs. So most of these drugs are developed by international agencies. While they develop these drugs, they don't really have a way of manufacturing and distributing it. So we believe that we can become that go-to company in Africa for drugs needed for neglected tropical diseases.
Wow.
And you talked about regulatory agencies. So by having again in-process control in our continuous manufacturing, having remedies, blockchain technology to collect and manage all of the data associated with all of our operations, and our ability to share these information with regulatory body in real time, I think will enable us to not only meet their standards, but exceed their standards. And I think these regulatory agencies are very interested in working with us. We have already started discussions with Kenyan and other regulatory bodies within Africa. And we also want to engage the US FDA and European EMA so that we can all work together.
Absolutely. Very, very fantastic work. Now, one thing that's also very interesting, there's going to be a lot of waves, a lot of impact that this kind of thinking, this kind of investment in the sub-African countries. And one question that comes to mind is the level of technical know-how, employees, that kind of thing. You mentioned Kenya sort of starting out there, but obviously there's going to be much more national impact with this.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what your business model is in developing people, hiring people, training people, the technical expertise. What is the business model? How are you going to be gathering the funds to be able to do this, to be able to get the people and the integration and the machinery and the technologies all integrated? Tell us a little bit about what the bigger plan is.
Yeah, I think we have from the very early days recognized that we can talk about creating local capacity, and we can talk about that as creating a sustainable model. But if we don't have workforce that is trained, that can actually feed into this industry, then that can only remain a dream and not a reality. So, and I think our research showed that this is a very important need, really developing and training workforce. So for example, most of the pharmaceutical industries, employ graduates from pharmacy schools, except that in most African countries, these schools train these students to be pharmacists and not for pharmaceutical industry. So what they have to do is actually bring them into their company and train over 6 months, a year. So that's not a very sustainable approach, particularly if you want to scale this industry, right? So I think we want to simultaneously, as we engage in getting our manufacturing operations up and running, in parallel, we want to collaborate with local universities, so also some of the international universities, such as UNC and Monash University in Australia, who have partnered with us in the past, UCL in London. So we'd like to bring academic institutions. We would also like to bring government, because government is obviously very interested in workforce training, which leads to economic development. And we already have started this discussion with the Kenyan government and other governments. And we also want to bring international organizations, such as FIP, which is a Federation of International Pharmaceutical Profession, and US Pharmacopoeia. These institutions, these organizations actually have ongoing program in workforce training. So we want to capitalize on what they've done in the past, but we also want to make sure that we actually understand the local need and involve local universities and government and develop very targeted programs so that we train, we actually, fill the gap that is between the, pharmacy graduates and what industry needs by having some bridging programs. And then our longer term, we would really actually would like to impact and affect the curriculum in many of these training programs so that we actually are training the workforce for tomorrow. So I think this is a very important part of our strategy. It's not just, we're not just doing it because it's nice to do. I think we're doing it because it's a necessary thing for us to do.
So it's a multi-pronged approach. There's so many different elements, if you will, about how you're going to be impacting technically the economy and the social economic status and the development, if you will, of sub-Saharan African countries. Tell
Right.
us a little bit about what your vision is there, and what's next, and how are you going to be investing in further R&D operations, efforts, etc.
Yeah, so our vision is that we want to initially start with drugs that are already in the market, and we're just going to manufacture them locally in Africa. We've chosen Kenya for a number of reasons, and we have actually analyzed 12 different countries with 40 different success parameters. And based on all that, we decided that Kenya is the right place for us. Um, I think we also, a very important criterion for us was that the government actually wants to do the same thing we want to do, that really promote local industry. So, and we have found a sort of a partner in government in Kenya. The Kisumu County government and the governor, Nyong'o, um, are very interested in developing healthcare in that region and ultimately really impact the whole country. So, and they also believe, like we do, that creating local capacity is really the way to do this. So we have a great partner in a Kisumu government, and we have great environment in Kenya because they have, the pharma industry is being developed there. So from a business perspective, we believe that we have a high probability of success, and we are de-risking a lot of the issues that we might have. Kenya also has one of the better workforce in pharma industry. So we believe that with all that, we will be able to attract impact investment. We will also raise necessary money through development bank debt financing, and we'll also go after philanthropic funding and gifts. So really, we want to really put together sort of a funding strategy and raise the necessary capital to really start this. Having done that, we believe that we can be very, very quickly become financially self-sustaining. As we do that, if I think about next 5 years, we want to actually also have a local research and development. We want to develop drugs in Africa for African population. So that's certainly our sort of a next phase where we want to be involved in, in research and development. And I think there are tremendous potentials. There's a large amount of knowledge, for example, in natural medicine, natural product medicine in Africa. We want to positively exploit that and hopefully develop drugs that come out of the natural resources in Africa. And lastly, but not the least, we do not want to just have near-term, sort of bringing more medicines to Africa. While as we speak, 50% of the R&D portfolio of pharmaceutical companies has moved from small molecule to what we call biologics, to protein therapeutics and genes. If we just focus on small molecules and bringing them to Africa, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, Africa will be in the same place that it is today. And that is, they will not have access to biologicals. So what we want to do is, as we move forward, we actually would like to bring biologicals to Africa as well.
Beautiful. Wow, I'm saying quite the vision, and that it's a really, when we talk about complicated issues and then we talk about complex issues, this is truly complex. And it's multifactorial, and it's a really hard problem to fix. It's no wonder a lot of pharmaceutical companies probably haven't endeavored into this, because I think it requires a lot of passion, and it requires time to be able to do what you're doing. I think that there is a self-propagating kind of business model that will ensue, but one has to be extremely patient in order to achieve that. With all of that said, there's many people who are probably going to be listening to this from the pharmaceutical, medical device, life sciences space. How is it that they could potentially partner, support, develop, what else can they do to participate in this long-term vision?
Yes, we are looking for partners. From the day I conceived this, I think I believe that this is only going to be possible if we get the right people, work with us and partner with us. So we are wide open for partnership in various aspects of what we want to do. Not only what we want to start, which is, um, initial manufacturing of small molecules, but in the training area, in research and development, in bringing biologicals. There's so many things that we want to do, training workforce. And we believe that we want to really find the right people and work with us. We want to become more of a convener of partners so that we can actually bring a lot of the necessary knowledge, the technology, the capital, all those things that we need to really, to grow this, this sector, the pharmaceutical sector, as you said, device diagnostics and other related health-related sectors. So one reason we wanted to go there and start this is because too often I've seen very, very well-intentioned organizations want to help countries in Africa and other places by working in US and Europe, sort of outside in. And I felt that too often those efforts, while they're well-intentioned in their work to some extent, they do not ever achieve their full potential. So I think from day one, we have decided that we will become part of that community. And one way to become part of the community is to actually go there and manufacture, if that is an important part of the solution. Instead of telling people to do this, we want to do it. I hope that we will become trusted member of the community and society. And as we do that, we will be very open, first of all, to share everything we learned, and so that other people can do what we are doing. We don't want to just do it ourselves. But also, as I said, we want to convene, partners. We want to bring people together so that we can solve bigger problems.
So it's a beautiful vision, Dr. Thacker, and I truly think it's visionary and it's exemplary of somebody taking a stab at being a pioneer. It's like literally, going to Iceland or to the Antarctica and becoming one of the original, courageous explorers. So definitely something to be written in history. And I'm sure that this will be the start of many wonderful things. For anybody who's interested in connecting with Dr. Thacker, I truly hope that you do. I think that the passion, the dedication, and the commitment and the incredible ideas here are truly admirable and definitely worth supporting. Please look for his contact details in the show notes below. We really encourage some participation here. If you're enjoying this conversation, we also encourage you to check out impetusdigital.com. These are the kinds of things that you can actually do. We do this in our platform, both asynchronously and synchronously with the pharmaceutical and life science companies we work with. We will gather your physicians, patients, allied healthcare providers, payers, and all kinds of other interested stakeholders to work with you in a series of touch points so that you can plan to do these kinds of things, to support these kinds of initiatives, and to kind of go beyond the pill thinking, even integrating things like blockchain. We really appreciate your time, everybody. If you can please like and subscribe to our channel. We also, and anywhere where you can find your podcast, we'd really appreciate if you can leave us a review. Thanks to everybody for your time. And Dr. Thacker, thank you again for a fantastic conversation.